And on to Rainbow Rare Earths. Sorry for making you wait a wee bit, George. No doubt it's well worth waiting for. Don't disappear. Listen to Rainbow Rare Earths. George has got a lot of fantastic stuff to say to you. Yesterday, AIM-listed Rainbow Rare Earths published the preliminary economic assessment. I can't say it, but it was very impressive. The PEA for the Rare Earths Project at Phalaborwa in South Africa. As expected, the economics are stunning. Rainbow is using new technology to extract rare earths from gypsum. A production of over 26,000 tons of separated rare earths is predicted, generating 3.6 billion of revenue over 14 years. That's a lot of money. George Bennett, CEO at Rainbow Rare Earths, joins us live from Johannesburg.
Good evening, Donald, and to all your listeners and viewers. Thanks very much for the introduction. Donald, I just want to correct you on one thing. We're not using new technology. The technology is well proven. It's the way we've put it together that's unique and that we are patenting. So it's a very important distinction, because
your technology comes from Florida, doesn't it, George?
Yes, but it's been applied commercially in numerous industries and in numerous countries around the world. So
has it been applied in gypsum stacks before? For rare
no,
earths?
but the as I say, the technology is proven. It's just the application that is different. It's not new technology, very different. So okay. I just wanted to clarify that.
Very good. Over to you, George.
Thank you. I need to share the screen here, don't I? Can you see my screen? Just to go through the disclaimer, as you can all see that there, and straight on to the key numbers of our PEA. I'm very pleased to announce very strong PEA numbers yesterday, and this is on the result of sort of 20 months of work since we secured this project in late November 2020 and really started working on it in January 2021. And now we sit in October 2020, and we've been able to develop a flow sheet that's economic and that has been proven at lab scale. And as I say, a very important distinction: every single part of our flow sheet has been used in mineral processing in some form or another, and it's just the way we put it together, which is unique and which has been patented. The back end is already patented with KTECH, the technology company in Florida, America, and the front end that we've co-developed is also undergoing a patent as we talk at the moment. So to get onto this slide, as you can see, on our base case scenario, which is a very conservative pricing that we've used in our financial model, the project's got an NPV of $620 million, a very, very strong IRR of over 40%, very, very good EBITDA margin of 75%, and we've got a payback of 2 years. If we had to use year-to-date prices for rare earths, that's from January 2022 to September 2022, we've got a NPV of almost $1 billion and an IRR of over 50% with a margin of over 80%. And these are this EBITDA margin, I believe, is the highest of any rare earth project in the world, and a payback, of less than 2 years. So very, very strong numbers. Also, importantly, we've used a conservative discount rate of 10% in our model. We could arguably use an 8% discount rate, because this is actually a chemical processing plant more than a mining project, which would even improve these numbers. But we've been conservative with our pricing and the inputs into our model to show that it's a very, very robust project that we have here. We've also got one of the lowest operating costs per kilogram of separated magnet rare earths, which is, I think, will be one of the lowest of all Western rare earth projects in the world. The only real project we can benchmark ourselves against is the Lynas Rare Earth operation in Australia, which is obviously, as you know, in production, one of the biggest operations in the world outside of China. And they, like Rainbow, go all the way through to separated rare earth oxides. And their cost per kilogram is significantly higher than Rainbow's. And in their best year to date, their operating margin 65%. So I'm just showing you how robust the Rainbow project is. Another key thing about the PEA that we've been able to demonstrate is that we can successfully apply this process flow sheet to phosphogypsum, and that's opening up other opportunities for us to secure other projects. You'll see that we made an announcement in June this year where we signed the MOU with a large diversified chemical company in South Africa to look at extracting the rare earth elements out of their phosphogypsum stream. What's significant about this is that their phosphogypsum stream is the exact same, uses the exact same feedstock that was used to create the Phalaborwa phosphogypsum stacks. So we know it's got a very similar rare earth basket, which is very high in NdPr, two of the key magnet rare earths, and also of a decent grade in the phosphogypsum. So that's a significant opportunity, we believe. And we also signed a master agreement with OCP in Morocco in August, and that's also very significant because it gives us country diversification, further project diversification, and it's also with the largest phosphogypsum and fertilizer producer in the world and phosphate acid producer in the world. So we think these two other opportunities are very exciting for Rainbow, and we will be applying a large part of our flow sheet that we've developed at Phalaborwa. We'll be able to apply to these other opportunities. Just to look at our business model as it's evolved over the last 2 years, is that we've got a strong focus now on looking to recover rare earths from secondary phosphogypsum sources, and we don't have a lot of the costs associated with hard rock mining rare earth projects, which you've got drilling and blasting, haulage of your ore to your process plant, then you've got crushing, milling, flotation, and so forth. A lot of the other costs that we don't have in our project at Phalaborwa and other projects that we are pursuing. Just to take your viewers to the rare earth market, some of those viewers who aren't au fait with it, is that we know that at the moment the strong demand for rare earths is structurally driven by government legislation and 2050 emission targets that have been set out by COP, and by the COP conference held last year in Edinburgh. And basically, wind turbines, which are being rolled out as quickly as they can be put up right now. There are many gigawatts in the pipeline of wind turbines, and also being driven by emission controls on the electric vehicles. So as you know, by 2030 in the UK, you won't be able to buy an internal combustion engine vehicle. And a lot of the car companies will also stop making internal combustion engine vehicles by 2030. I think France is 2035. Some other European countries are 2040. But over the next 20 to 30 years, there's legislation driving demand for these rare earth magnets, which will go into all these devices, including wind turbine, including drones, electric scooters, electric motorbikes, your cell phone, all use permanent magnets. And the key components for permanent magnets are neodymium and praseodymium, and to a certain extent, terbium and dysprosium. And fortunately, at Phalaborwa, we have all four of these rare earth elements in significant quantities, which makes our flow sheet very economic. I must stress that 95% of the value of our rare earth basket sits in those four rare earth elements. So also very significant. So as I said, we see a big supply-demand deficit growing. And if you look at all the forecasts from people a lot cleverer than myself, all forecasting rising demand for NdPr and also for rising prices, from here on until 2030. Another key thing for the viewers to understand is that China still controls about 80% of world's rare earth production in terms of mineral concentrate, but they control 90 to 95% of downstream processing. This is where you take your mineral concentrate and you do further beneficiation to turn it. Initially, you have to crack your mineral concentrate. Then you have to produce either mixed rare earth carbonate or mixed rare earth oxide. Then you go and perform the next stage, which is to separate these individual rare earths into separated rare earth oxides. And then you go one step further, which is to produce a metal and an alloy. And once you've done that, then it becomes feedstock to a magnet manufacturer. So there's still many steps in the rare earth processing supply chain that that need to be developed in the West. And at the moment, we hope to be one of the main suppliers of separated rare earth oxides to that developing market in the West. Just a quick look at our resource. As one can see, we've got, that's our resource update. We in a town called Phalaborwa in South Africa, which has got a huge mining infrastructure. We're literally within 2 or 3 kilometers of the center of the town. We've got all the infrastructure on the site because our site's a mothballed phosphoric acid plant that was owned by Sasol. And on that site, we have warehouses, laboratories, admin offices, engineering workshops, and so forth, and electrical reticulation, all as part of the site that we have secured, where these gypsum stacks are that Rainbow have secured with basalt phosphates in South Africa. We also have very, very skilled labor force on our doorstep. The 3 operating mines still in Phalaborwa, and we've got a lot of OEMs around as well. So original equipment manufacturers, for instance, We're one of the biggest suppliers of process plant pumps in the world, has got a depot 800 meters from our front gate. So this just gives you an idea that we are very well serviced from labor, from reagent suppliers, and from equipment suppliers right on our doorstep. And we don't have the problems associated with trying to build a mine in the middle of the jungle or in the middle of the outback, somewhere else in the world. Just to once again reiterate how Rainbow stacks up against some of the other projects in the world. As I said, we are these phosphogypsum stacks, because there's a very, very low mining cost, or it's almost nothing, that we need to compare ourselves to ionic clay deposits. Ionic clay deposits also have historically very, very low mining costs. And compared to ionic clay deposits, we're 5 to 10 times higher grade. But very importantly, our NdPr parts per million is exceptionally high compared to ionic clay deposits out there in the world. The next closest one is we're still 600 times higher in ppm, parts per million, of neodymium and praseodymium. And then you have a look at the hard rock deposits out there. We still stack up very favorably against some of those hard rock deposits. And very importantly, if you look at our uranium and thorium content, we're exceptionally low. And in fact, you'll read in our PEA that we are below 1 becquerel unit, which is a benchmark for radioactivity. Now, the benchmark for radioactivity to ship on the high sea or to export into China, for instance, is 10 becquerel units. So we're below 1/10 of the benchmark. And there's effectively more radioactivity in your microwave oven than there is in our Phalaborwa gypsum deposit. So it's another very big positive for this project. Once again, we look at the robust economics. So life of operation, 14 odd years. We will be treating 2.2 million tons per annum of this phosphogypsum on these 2 residue stacks that we have at Phalaborwa, and we'll be producing 26,000 odd tons of rare earth oxides over the life of the project. The capital costs are $295 million US. Once again, conservative capital cost. We'll be looking to optimize this in the next stage of feasibility study, and our operating cost is exceptionally low per kilogram of separated rare earth oxides compared to any other project out there at the moment. If you look at once again the pricing sensitivity in our financial model, once again we've been very conservative. Our base case is based on 2023 numbers, which are below the year-to-date numbers for rare earth pricing. And if you look at the forecast at the moment, as I say, you can see we've got an NPV of over $1 billion. We've got a EBITDA margin of over 80%, and we've got a IRR of over 44%. So very, very strong numbers on the forecast, and exceptionally strong numbers on the base case as well. So we're very positive that we can survive even from this level, which the market is not anticipating. The market's already come down in pricing from the peak around about February this year in rare earth pricing to where we sit now. but we could see substantial reduction in rare earth prices, and Phalaborwa would still be a very profitable project, which is de-risked this project, I believe, for investors to a large extent. That's just cumulative cash flow over the life of the project, which Donald has alluded to earlier. Once again, if we look at the sensitivities to OPEX, CAPEX, and the RAND, and we've used a very conservative RAND exchange rate as well, and you can see our project stands up very, very well under all scenarios, which once again, it reinforces my view that this project can see significant reduction in rare earth prices. Even if rare earth prices halve from here, we would still be highly profitable as a business. One of the reasons why we can sustain this is because of our very low operating and our capital cost base. And in this slide, you can see what a typical hard rock rare earth project needs to do before it gets to your final stage of beneficiation compared to Phalaborwa. We're just going to what they call hydraulically mine the gypsum residue on the two stacks, which is using big water cannons. You normally have got hard rock mining, you've got drilling, blasting, hauling. You then got stockpile, you've got crushing, you've got milling. You have you're going to have flotation, which also requires reagents before you produce a mineral concentrate. Then you're going to have to crack that mineral concentrate into chemical form, and then you can start going downstream to produce a mixed rare earth carbonate or a mixed rare earth oxide. And then and most projects don't go further than that right now. Only a very few projects are going further, which is separated rare earth oxides. And one of the key reasons why we're fortunate at Phalaborwa is that at Phalaborwa, the chemical stacks are actually in cracked chemical form already. So that's a big advantage to the project, because with the production of this in the phos acid plant, you took hard rock slurry from the hard rock mine next door, phosphate hard rock mine run by Phoscor next door, and they used a flotation process to produce phosphate slurry, and this was then fed into a sulfuric acid plant where you added a phosphoric acid plant, where you added sulfuric acid and heat, and those are two of the key costs and ingredients that you need to crack rare earths into chemical form. And this has taken place for us already at Phalaborwa. There's the flow sheet. I won't go into much detail now, but at your leisure, you can go to our presentation. It's on our website. You can have a look at the flow sheet. And if you look at our PEA document, there's a huge section on the test work and on the description of this flow sheet to give you for the market to understand exactly what Rainbow have been able to achieve here. One of the key things that we also have low capex and low opex is that to go to separated rare earth oxides, we have this unique KTECH IP, which is continuous ion exchange and continuous ion chromatography, which they developed starting with continuous ion exchange in the 1980s. So these guys, this is not new technology. Continuous ion exchange, for instance, is used in all modern uranium plants. Myself and my team at Rainbow have built 2 uranium plants in our previous careers. So we understand materials of construction, and we understand this technology. And then continuous ion chromatography has been developed by KTECH some 20 odd years ago, and it's used in a number of industries, including biotech, mining, chemical industries, and they are located all around the world. And the photograph you see there, one of these continuous ion exchange modules, is that module is actually larger than what we're going to require at Phalaborwa. So our flow sheet is very scalable. In fact, what we are going to be building is in fact smaller than the biggest commercially available units in production or being used in production right now in one of the plants that KTECH has designed. So that once again gives us lots of confidence in our flow sheet. Basically, on the back of these very strong results, there you can see a photograph of the KTECH laboratory in Florida, where they've tested and proven this flow sheet at length, and they continue to do optimization between now and the end of the year, even though we completed the PEA flow sheet. There's always optimization in flow sheets that takes place, and we'll be optimizing right through to the end of the bankable feasibility stage. So basically, our next steps are we're going to come out with the resource update. We're going to go into our full feasibility study. We'll be updating the permits that are in place, and to make sure that we've got our ducks in a row with regards to permitting. This is a brownfield site, so lots of permits already in place that we were required to operate a chemical plant on the chemical processing site, but there will be brownfield amendments to these permits, and we will be requiring a new permit for the new stack site, which will be aligned to IFC and Equator Principle standards, which is reducing the environmental liability that sits with these two gypsum stacks. So this is a very big ESG project. We're cleaning up a big environmental liability because these stacks have got a lot of acid water associated with them. We'll be neutralizing that acid water and using it in the closed circuit and the rare earth processing plant at Phalaborwa, and we'll be redepositing a benign gypsum on a new stack site, which, as I said, will be to IFC and Equator Principle standards. And of course, that will be a whole new permit application, but it's a permit application that's basically cleaning up the environment. And so we don't foresee any problems there. And then lastly, we will be embarking on a pilot plant operation to extensively pilot the flow sheet to further reduce any risk that we might have not foreseen with developing this flow sheet. But it has been tested at lab scale. We'll now be doing it in a continuous larger scale pilot plant on site, and that's one of the key stages we'll be doing next. So to finish off, we think Rainbow is, unbelievably well positioned to unlock this the opportunities for the green revolution, and that is recovering rare earth oxides from secondary sources, which makes each of those projects a good ESG story. We've got a very robust PEA. We took a long time developing this PEA in terms of the flow sheet, and the reason is because we wanted to get it right. And as I said, if you look at the CVs of our team, we've got a large background of experience in developing projects, designing process plants, and building them. And we wanted to make sure that we came out with the best PEA possible, and I believe we've done that. And we have very strong investor support from a strong institutional base, and we believe that will continue going forward. So thanks very much to the viewers for your time, and hopefully this has been very informative to you all.
It has indeed, George. Thank you very much indeed. I think we have to pause for a moment and say congratulations to you, because you've come a terrific distance in just 20 months.
Yes, we have, but we didn't start at a zero base. The Phalaborwa gypsum stacks have been subject to research by Mintech, the well-known mining laboratory in South Africa, for 20-odd years. So we had that whole body of knowledge that we're able to draw on, plus Sasol themselves, some 12 to 15 odd years ago, did a whole lot of research on extracting rare earths from the phosphogypsum at Phalaborwa. And in fact, they built a pilot plant on site, a bulk pilot plant, which successfully extracted 3 tons of mixed rare earth carbonate from their phosphoric acid solution at Phalaborwa. So we always knew we could extract the rare earths from the phosphogypsum. It was now just a matter of tweaking this flow sheet. And as I say, so we've achieved a lot in 20 months, but there's a lot more. And then very importantly, KTECH bring to the party with Rainbow, and we've certainly selected the right partner there, over 30 years of phosphogypsum experience in Florida. Florida is the center of phosphogypsum mining and phosphogypsum stacks in the USA. That's why they're based in Florida. And we're able to draw on their 30-odd years of experience. And when I say 30 years of experience, not that the company is 30 years old, but the original principal founders of KTECH are still there at the company. So all their IP that sits in their head, we've been able to draw on. And and hence, and they've got over 50 patents globally to their name for extraction of various process routes for various substances, including phosphogypsum. So we had a big body of knowledge to draw on and to help us develop where we've got to. And as I said, the front end of our flow sheet is now subject to a patent application jointly between KTECH and ourselves. And this is opening up the other opportunities that we've seen Rainbow start to open up, as I've mentioned, with what we've signed over the last couple of months with other opportunities in other countries.
Okay. Perhaps we can go through this fairly quickly. Resource update. When do you expect, in terms of news flow, when do you expect the resource update to come next?
A resource update will be in the next 4 to 8 weeks, I would say.
Oh, quite soon. And the full feasibility study, when might we expect that one?
Well, no, we've just finished the PEA, Donald. You have to give me time to breathe. We've got
You don't breathe, George. I just listen to you present.
We have to scope out exactly the feasibility study. We have to select an engineer to do that, because we used a very good engineering firm for the PEA. But like anything, it'll have to go to commercial tender, and then we've got to select the engineer, and then we've got to see what their schedule is. So as soon as we have that schedule, I will update the market. But at the moment,
Q2 of next year, possibly.
No, you can't do a full feasibility study that quickly, Donald. You've got to do these things properly.
Back end of 2023.
At the back end of 2023, we should be complete a full definitive / bankable feasibility study.
Fantastic. No, that's very helpful, George. Really helpful. And permitting for the stacks, the 2 stacks, gypsum stacks.
Just one stack site. Just one stack site we have to permit, and we've already highlighted that as a critical path item for Rainbow, and we've started work on that already.
Okay. As you say, this is a low cost return project with capex costs of around 295 million. So are you looking at a mix of debt and equity to fund this? And what kind of discussions have you had so far around this with banks and
well, we had to get the
other
PEA
interested parties?
We had to get our PEA out first before we can go into hard discussions. But now that we've got firm numbers, we can start these discussions. We anticipate circa 70% debt and 30% equity, but that's still some way off. And we've got a lot of work to do. We know the project's very robust. We know with these kind of numbers and this payback period that this is very financeable. And we've had approaches from a number of debt financiers to have a look at financing our project. So we're not short of people who are knocking on our door. And now that the PA, this was before the PA was launched, and now that the PA has been published and people can see exactly how good these numbers are, I think we'll have more people knocking on our doors over the next few weeks.
So the PA just unlocks a whole lot of interest, you think?
Correct.
Oh,
I always said that this would be an inflection point for the share price and for the market to start re-rating the share. And I think if you look at the risk profile of Rainbow, look at the opportunities, we're not a single rare earth project company, whereas most rare earth project companies are single projects. So you've got a huge amount of risk with that. We've got multiple projects. We've now got country diversification. And I think that's quite unique in this space. And we've got a way of still becoming, when I say still becoming, each project we're looking at is going to have very, very similar low operating costs, and each of those projects will be able to deliver a very, very low cost for separated rare earth oxides,
okay,
which I think the Western world's looking for.
John, talking about the Western world, John Bryant says, you said that the final stage processing of rare earths is still concentrated in China. Where is the capability being developed in the West to take the oxides that Rainbow produces?
Well, that's a very good question, because right now there's very limited capacity in the West for separated rare earth oxides. that has to be built out. We've got the EU, the UK government, Canada, the US, all making lots of noise about having independent supply chain outside of China, but they've got to then make sure that the downstream beneficiation gets given support and actually starts being developed in the West. If you look at a big rare earth concentrate producer like Mountain Pass, right now all their concentrate, and they're the biggest mine outside of China, even bigger than Lynas in terms of concentrate production, all goes to China. They still haven't got their downstream beneficiation done at Mountain Pass. And even if they were able, and I know they are busy retrofitting their process plant in Mountain Pass in Nevada, that once they get to separated rare earth oxide, there still aren't the magnet manufacturers in the US that have been built yet. They can take it, you know. So that has to be built out. So
is that a source of frustration for you?
Well, we will be a supplier of separated rare earth oxides, and we will sell it to where the market is. We hope that market is going to be developed in the West, and we are supportive of that. But in the short term, by the time, and because we're very near-term production compared to most projects, in the short term, we'll probably have to have offtakes with Chinese downstream players until the West can develop it.
Very good. You answered two questions in one there. That was very clever. Mark Proudfoot, last question. Remind us, when is first revenue? I think it was in the RNS, so I think he's apologizing for asking a question that he should know the answer to. When is the first revenue expected?
Well, if things go to plan, and as I said, the team we've got at Rainbow has built a lot of process plants on time, on budget, I might add, as MDM Engineering. We are targeting to be commissioning in the latter part of 2025 and full production 2026.
Fantastic. George Bennett.
Now, most hard rock mining projects, be they rare earth mining, gold mining, or whatever, your cradle to grave, which is when you start with the project, you initially get it to production, averages between 10, 12 to 20 odd years.
Fantastic. We're out of time, George. I do apologize. Thank you so much for coming to us from Johannesburg tonight. That was absolutely fantastic. Oh, I need to go and have a cup of tea after that and calm down. It was so much information in there. George, that was terrific. You did really well.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. And hopefully the viewers understood it and they took note. I've delivered on what I was...
You've been telling them a story for quite some time. You're just putting a lot more numbers and so on and detail into it. So yeah, I'm sure they do get it.
I've delivered the numbers, you know, even better than what I've been indicating for some time, you know.
Even better, and you were indicating good numbers.
Yeah. So let's hope we continue to see positive reaction to it, Donald.